Hello and welcome to another Revel Coach conversation with your hosts and co-founders of Revel Coach, Alison, Nissen, that's me, and my sister, Marcy Stoudt. We are so excited today to be introducing Julie Tucker. She happens to be another Denison alumni, and not only is she a Denison alum, however, she works on the Hill. We are super excited to have this conversation. Julie, welcome to the show. What have you been up to?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. So my role at Denison is Director of Family Engagement and the Denison Professional Network. It's a new role that started in October, so a little bit of a career change for me. Before that, I worked in student life at Denison, so working with our team to build the Red Frame Lab, which is our Center for Entrepreneurship, Design Thinking, and Innovation, building our brand new Hoaglin Wellness Center and the wellness strategic plan with that, and then working also closely with our campus safety teams and with our orientation and first year experience team. So my life before this current role was very much on the student side of things. So excited to be working on the alumni side of things now.
Well, I am so excited you're here. Julie, we met you at the first one of our first meetings was when we went back to campus for Remix, which is the entrepreneurial community that you all put together, and we go back every year. So if you don't mind, we have been so impressed with Denison through as the Alumni Network, but through getting back on campus and all the great things that you're doing. So just for our audience, can you start with sharing like what is Remix and how did that kind of idea and the concept come to life?
Yeah. So in the last strategic plan, one of the things that came about was the creation of this Red Frame Lab. So I think recognizing that our students and our alums were so entrepreneurial, and also I think just recognizing that with this generation of college students, they were really, really good at identifying problems. We needed to also give them the tools to solve problems and to be able to do some of that. And so Red Frame started. And then I think right after Red Frame started, we had some alums come to us and say, hey, we have so many entrepreneurial Denison alums. And so can we do something that is for alumni by alumni? And so the idea of Remix, this entrepreneurship summit came about. And I think really wanting to bring back alums. And I think that was a novel idea at the time. I think our alums were quick to say like, hey, colleges are really good about asking alums to come back to campus to do things for students. How about we come back to campus to do things for alums? And I think to really capitalize on the entrepreneurial DNA of Denison students and Denison alums, let's basically create a conference. And so that's where Remix came to be. We did that first one in 2018, didn't want to lose the momentum, did another one in 2019. Thankfully, we had already agreed that 2020 would be our year off. That was probably a good sign. And then 2021, we did it virtually, I think just given some COVID dynamics. And then I think 2022 and 2023, we did it again in person. And so it's just been this wonderful gathering of alums, bringing students into the mix as well. The name Remix, it doesn't sound very innovative for an entrepreneurship summit, but for us, it's always been about the core of remixing the generations, remixing the industries, remixing just like the Denisonians at the table. I think we often, David Howitt, who's a Denison alum, Chris Wolfington, who's a Denison alum, they're both class of 90. They were the two that came to us. They came to President Weinberg and said, hey, let's do this thing. And I think for them, it was also a contrast of like reunion events or traditional alumni events are very much about like, come back and be nostalgic about who you were when you were 18 to 22. Whereas Remix and other alumni events are really about who are you now? Where do you want to go? And how does your Denison network help you to get there? So that's a roundabout answer of like where Remix started and kind of how it's evolved a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's so many great nuggets. I know for Alison and me, we had this concept now called Revel Coach, but we wanted to go into business together. And around the same time they were putting a little bit of our business plan together, we got the email. And that was, for the 2018 conference, but we were like, all right, let's sign up. And by the time this conference comes around, we've got to have something to talk about. So for us, we feel like our journey of success started with you. And then every time we go and we meet different alumni, they're so open to sharing, their lessons that learn. This is how you do it. Let me show you. We have a lot of our speakers that for our Revel conversations are from this, and we've got a few clients from it. It's really been a real blessing for our business and for the two of us going back on Hill. So we are raving fans of Remix. And and I also love meeting the students, which reminds me of another question. So you're talking about the Red Frame Labs, which is the entrepreneurial part. And we meet all these students that have like pretty impressive businesses that they start on campus during their 4 years at Denison. Can you highlight one of your favorites?
Ooh, a recent one. It's hard to say a favorite just because they're also
so do we need a little disclaimer? If you're not mentioned and you're watching this, know that you are a favorite as well. That make you better? Because there's so many good ones.
Always. One that we have that's like very active now is called True Cha. And it is two students who started this as first year students, which I think is also really special. Like they just sort of like came out the gate, and Red Frame has been such a supporter of them. But it's a boba tea business that they've partnered with our dining service provider to be able to offer on campus. And I love it because like the lines are out the door, and I think it's just been the energy that Charlie and Truk bring to this work, and the ideas that they have and the way that they're trying to get it better. And even the way that they solicit customer feedback, like they have a little box that says like, what do you want to see next? It's just a really cool business. And I think just because it's so visible on campus, that's been really, really cool to see.
I think it's so fun that Denison really opens up to entrepreneurs and people that don't even know that they're going to be entrepreneurs, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And the Red Frame Lab itself it feels unique. Now, when I was in college, we didn't have anything for entrepreneurs. You picked your career path and you followed it, and that might have led to graduate school, or it might have led to a career, and that was about it. But it seems that entrepreneurship has really taken over, and maybe particularly with the liberal arts education. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that part of our approach, I think there are many schools who are like, oh, you have to have an entrepreneurship major and entrepreneurship concentration. I think one of the successes about the way that we've done this is to infuse it throughout the student experience in a lot of different ways. And so Red Frame is often invited into a global commerce class or into a comm class and or data analytics. And they're often giving students feedback about like how to make that pitch to a customer, or Red Frame consulting. I think we've taken some elements of entrepreneurship and infused it into the consulting piece as well, where they're talking to a client about how to scope a project, and thinking about the needs and collecting data about the user experience. And then again, making that pitch, making those recommendations. Red Core, which is our sort of in-house team of Denison students who are solving problems for campus. Actually, one of the projects that they're working on now is how to engage young alums, and what is it that the young alum experience needs. And so I think Red Frame has just become such a huge part of the Denison experience, and how any student who's like, oh, here's this problem that I'm identifying. How do I solve it? Who do I talk to? Like, it's become very commonplace to say, go talk to the Red Frame Lab. And I just think that that's been really beautiful. Again, it's not this standalone major that only 30 students get access to. It's something that all sort of 2,400 students have access to, which has been great.
And I just feel like the accessibility of the programs are what I really admire when I think about student life at Denison, is just kind of in the fabric of what they do and the experience that the students have. And so you talk about what young alums need. And so back in 2020, you all, when everybody was sent home, you guys created basically one of the largest internship programs that the university has ever had, and could potentially be one of the biggest ones that many have had. But they use the framework of the Red Frame Lab. So you had a professor guiding the students, and they created little teams, and then you reached out to a bunch of alumni that had businesses. And so Alison and I were fortunate to have a team, and they consulted us, and they really gave us sound business. They did so much research. We had this great idea. We had two different ideas. They were doing proof of concepts, and one, they actually showed the proof of concept doesn't work, but they went through the whole process of how to make funds through doing that. And then they also had this other one that worked really well that we are doing now. But from there, we ended up hiring one of the interns, and she started her own marketing company. And I think we were her first client. So all the Revel branding is from a Denison senior from 2020 that has been with us the whole time. And just really grateful because her business is super successful right now. She's not sponsoring this podcast, but it is Lucy Carlisle. If you're interested in seeing that, or actually,
Petrov now.
Petrov. I don't know. I just realized she just got married like 2 weeks ago. But so we're grateful for all the I think we're recipients of, the two-way, the benefit goes both directions. So, but I'd love to switch gears and talk a little bit about the alumni engagement, the family gatherings, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we have begun launching an alumni strategic plan. I think lots of great work in talking to alums and talking to different offices across campus about our work. I think engaging early alums is definitely a piece of that. One of the pieces that I'm selfishly super excited about, because it's a piece that I get to be really part of, is how are we supporting the ongoing professional journey of alums, right? So how is our value add to the lives of alumni not ending at graduation day, right? Like, how are we continuing to help them? And I think especially in this generation of students and alums, we know that they are making career pivots like 18 months out, 2 years out. And I think making sure that Denison is a resource for them, I think especially on the professional side. So our alumni office partners really closely with the Knowlton Center for Career Exploration. And that's been great. I think it's also just recognizing, I think Remix is actually the pioneer and the model for how we're going to do this work in other elements and other affinity groups. So I'm really excited that we're doing a remix for women. It's going to be a women's leadership, women in business gathering in April, and that's going to be spectacular. And so creating, again, another pocket, another community of Denison alums on their own professional journey. I do think that one of the next ones will also be a remix in the arts. So how do you bring alums who have been in different elements of the arts together for some of that? And then also industries. One of the things that we're going to try to do is to create online career communities. So one in entrepreneurship, one in consulting, another in finance, and another in nonprofit. And we'll continue to expand from there. But I think just making sure that alums know that they can continue to turn to their Denison network for that next job or that question that they're tackling or grappling with, because we know that they're dynamic humans in that Denison network. And so just making that a little bit more accessible to our alums is something we're working to do.
Great. So in the meantime, if you have an alumni and somebody calls you and say, what is Denison do? I hear they're helping, alumni with their career, and say they're doing a career transition or anything like that. Do they just reach out to the Knowlton Center? How do they get started?
Yeah, I would say the Knowlton Center would be good. They could reach out to the alumni office and we could get them connected that way. We also have something called Ask a Denisonian that launched last year. And so it's this system that you can ask any question you'd like. And then artificial intelligence uses our alumni database and identifies the alums that should be asked that question. The alum then can choose whether or not to respond. And then it goes to the respondent. So just, I think, another great way to match student questions or alum questions to the power of the Denison Network. So that's been something that's been really exciting as well. But of course, folks are also free to reach out to Knowlton or to the alumni office, and we can make those connections as well.
Yeah. When students are, they're 20, 21 years old, they're very bashful, not all of them, but a lot of them are very bashful about speaking with people that are alumni, because they feel like that person has advanced so much farther than they can even imagine. And so, being able to connect and have something like the artificial intelligence is fantastic, by the way. Just being able to know who to connect with is a big factor. I know when I was in college, I was an English major, and my dad kept hounding me to go visit the Alumni Center and find out who in the last 10 years has graduated with an English degree and what are they doing with it. I didn't take his advice. I should have. It was very sound advice, but I did not take it, and I do regret that decision.
Yeah, and I think the Knowlton Center has done a great job at just trying to equip students with those networking skills and the ability to sort of engage alums and to, I think, especially coming out of COVID, right, to like help them go from being bashful or hesitant or nervous and just like, hey, these alums are all here to support you. They're here to engage. They're wonderful humans. So you can do this. We actually had a networking event over winter break, and it was interesting because you have these dynamic, incredible students, and I know their backgrounds, I know their resumes. I'm like, go talk to that alum over there. They want to talk to you. And so just like giving them that gentle nudge and that boost of confidence that they can do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, just the idea that the Knowlton Center or the Red Frame Labs will go into the classrooms and talk to people. That's that warm introduction that people need, because walking through a door is not always easy, especially if you don't know who or what's on the other side. Is it going to challenge you? Is it going to make you feel uncomfortable? And so, this is exciting. And I know other colleges and universities are attempting to do what Denison is doing. We often see Denison in the headlines. On LinkedIn, I see all the time. I see Denison's in this magazine, Denison's in that magazine. They're quoting Adam, our president, all the time, and it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Adam has been such, I think, a visionary in this work and how you, I think, contribute to the career outcomes of your students and that ROI of a college education, and really mobilizing our alumni community for that. So Denison is very fortunate. Adam is fantastic.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about our president, Adam, because I do feel like he's got a fervor for connection and engagement, and he's very present both every alumni function I've been to, or I hear about students being engaged with him. Can you just share, like, how does he do his, for a liberal arts school, how does he kind of do his job?
He is extraordinary. The way that he engages with our students, with our families, with faculty and staff across the college, with the local community. I think the way that he is attuned to what's going on, to the needs of various populations, and of like taking action. And I think empowering people to do their job. Like, I think I speak with pride on two fronts, right? Like, he is the president of my alma mater, which I am just like deeply proud of. But the opportunity to work for this man is also just the gift of a lifetime. And so just something that I don't take for granted and just view as being very special.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like every time he talks, I'm like, he's such a visionary, but he lives with the people.
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
So many great things. Well, another thing that we're going to we are just going to keep complimenting all the things that we love about it, and you can tell us more. But there's another thing you all started called Denison Everywhere, and it's everywhere around the world, and it's the same date. And in cities across the world where you have a couple alumni or one or two, like my sister in Houston, they organize it. You give them all the tools to organize it, like, how to reach out to the local alumni, and then they have a place where they meet, like a dinner or a restaurant or bar or something like that. And then you get to meet other Denisonians in your town. And I know when it first started, it was cool, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and cooler and cooler. So tell us a little bit more about what Denison Everywhere means for the alumni engagement.
Yeah, I think it's just this really fantastic night to celebrate Denison. And you're right, like the fact that it's all happening the same day, the same time, 6 to 8 p.m. Local time is really fun. And I think also just to follow on social media as we post the pictures of each of the cities, and you just sort of go, because some of them now are internationally. And so you see they begin to pop up at noon Eastern Standard Time, right? Because it's like in Europe. And then you just see the posts. Last week for the event, I was in New York. And so we had about 100, probably over, 100 alums there, and lots of alums from the grad classes of 20, 21, 22, and 23. So you just had this synergy of young alums. And I think that this goes to part of our strategy as well, beginning to build these geographically based alumni networks, right? Like in big cities, especially like New York, Chicago, DC, Boston, LA, where we have large concentrations of alums, to begin to build both like the social and the professional networking pieces of that, and the power of the Denison Network there. So it is such a fun event where people come together. The energy, just I think as we talk to people who attended locations at various cities, just the energy, the good conversations, it's such a fun event.
It's so fun. So we are my group of best friends from Denison. We graduated in 94, but we get together every year. We talk like on our chat, on our text chat, probably like a few times a day, every day. And so when it comes to Denison, everyone's like, who's going? Like once the words come out, like we're all registered, but we're all in different cities and different places. So it's just fun. We all, what are you wearing?
Absolutely.
It is great. It is great. Although I did have somebody request that we move it to February instead of January because they do dry January.
It's so funny.
That's great feedback.
Oh, Julie, this has been such a fun conversation. I am so excited for our alma mater, and I have been very excited to talk to you. If somebody wanted to learn more about Denison and what you do, what would be the best way to get in touch?
With me specifically? Yeah. So I would say email, just tuckerj@denison.edu. That's a great way to get in touch and to have a conversation. And we could schedule a phone call or a Zoom, but always happy to talk to alums or anyone about the work that Denison's doing or how we could best support them.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We enjoyed this conversation. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks when we're back on campus.
Yes. Thank you both. This has been so much fun. Thank you.
Revel Coach is a collaborative platform that builds leadership programs for entrepreneurs, coaches, executives, and authors. For more information, visit us at revelcoach.com and follow us on LinkedIn to never miss an update.